On the 21st of May 1996, on a stormy night in Toronto, Ontario, two security guards discovered the blood-soaked body of a transvestite prostitute, shot execution style and left for dead.
When he went down to that stairwell, he didn't know what was going to happen until he turned to face the gun and realized that he was going to die.
Before long, investigators were tracking a possible serial killer.
On an average year in Toronto, there's about 60 homicides, but to have 3 in the span of 24 hours would be very unusual.
The street workers and the residents lived in fear. The panic was pretty strong.
As well as the police, others also chronicled the investigation. On film, on paper, and on tape. Through their lenses, they captured the story of the Victoria Day shooter. Toronto, Ontario is Canada's largest metropolis, and no stranger to what is often referred to as the world's oldest profession. Like in all urban centres, Toronto's sex industry takes many forms, from escort agencies with shop fronts and regular business hours, to the men, women and transsexuals who ply their trade after dark on lonely street corners and in dark alleys. It can be dangerous work, and those involved are sometimes easy targets for predators.
Prostitution business goes 365 nights a year. I think on any level prostitutes are vulnerable, but especially the ones that, have to work on the street, either for drugs or to make money for, their day-to-day survival.
Mainly because of the type of business they're in. They put themselves in compromising positions right away where they're going to isolated places with people that they don't know. It's a matter of luck, one way or another, whether or not you're going there with somebody that wants to part with their money for their moment of satisfaction, or whether or not it's a person that has some evil intentions towards you and may cause you some harm.
May 1996. As summer approached, one familiar face on Toronto's city centre streets was 19-year-old Sean Keegan, originally from a smaller community to the east.
Sean Keegan was a drag queen, a very outgoing, friendly sort of young man who ran away from home when he was young. Not secretly, he simply told his family he didn't fit in and wanted to go to the big city.
He had hopped around from shelter to shelter, so he was well known to a number of us. So he was very well liked in the community, had a lot of friends on the street.
He told his mother and his father that he felt that he had finally found a place where he could belong. He loved the freedom of it, but the freedom came with a cost for him because he didn't have that much skill for jobs. He began turning tricks as a sex worker on the streets of Toronto.
Monday the 21st of May was the end of the Victoria Day long weekend. Although stormy weather was forecast, meaning few would be out on the streets, Sean prepared himself for a night of work.
A friend of his had given him a scarf to wear, a bright-colored scarf to wear around his neck that night so that he could look pretty. And this was how she put it.
Sean was nervous about working alone, and by 11 o'clock, he was braving one of the worst storms of the year.
That night was an unusual night in the fact that it was torrential downpours in the Toronto area and an absolutely spectacular lightning storm, interspersed with people letting off fireworks since it was Victoria Day.
Not far away, 31-year-old transsexual Thomas Wilkinson known to many simply as Deanna, also stood alone.
They weren't working with a partner. There was no light to be out there. So I imagine they were out there because they were pretty desperate for money.
At the same time, on the other side of the city, a young woman named Brenda Ludgate had the street to herself in an area frequented by female prostitutes.
Brenda Ludgate was a 25-year-old female from a good family. Seems to have started running around with the wrong people, more or less. Became addicted to certain drugs and ended up in prostitution to support her habit.
She had a loving family, a mother in particular who was very, very nice lady. And no matter what Brenda's life had taken her, in which direction Brenda's life had taken her, her mother remained close to her, remained a loving mother.
At 11:10, while rain, thunder and fireworks filled the night sky, a potential customer approached Brenda.
She would have just been standing on a corner, standing on the sidewalk. She has to get into his car. As soon as that happens, he has the power.
And when she got into his car, she had no idea what was going to happen.
At 11:15, not far away in an apartment block, locals were winding down the long weekend.
There was 3 of them in an apartment. They were visiting with friends, and they had heard fireworks and different things like that. But in amongst all the noise, they were sure that they had heard some yelling and some arguing.
One of them decided to investigate.
The witness was out on her balcony, and she looked down there and she saw a vehicle that was red in color, that was a truck. And then once the vehicle had left, she saw what appeared to be a body lying there.
Rushing down, the group found the body of Brenda Ludgate lying dead in a pool of blood. Crime reporter and photographer Jim Rankin learned of the discovery on his police scanner.
And it was very moody that night with the rain and the darkness. The media was kept back probably 30, 40 meters from where the body was. There was a lone cruiser parked there with the headlights on, illuminating a brick wall, and she was laying face up, looking at the sky. That's how they found her. The one photo I took that night that stands out and brings me back to the moment was a police officer standing near the body, holding a handheld light, and the cruiser is parked in front of the body, so you don't see it, but it's implied.
Detective James Raymer was soon on the scene, searching for both clues and a cause of death.
At that time, we didn't know for sure what had happened. It had been violent, and she had quite obviously some severe trauma to her head area. There was a lot of blood.
While Brenda's body was removed for a post-mortem, the weather was making finding tire tracks, fingerprints and other trace evidence at the crime scene almost impossible.
It was just pouring. I mean, it would have defeated anything or destroyed any potential evidence of that type had there been any.
In such conditions, investigators had little more to go on than the memory of the eyewitnesses.
They were agitated, but they were calm and composed, and they were eager to assist us and provide us whatever information they could.
But when it came to a description of the red truck, getting specific information involving either the make or the model proved difficult.
The witness herself was not somebody that readily knew different vehicles. She didn't readily recognize the type of truck that it was.
More disturbing, news of another crime was now making its rounds on police radios. Shortly after Brenda's body had been discovered, tenants in a building on the other side of the city noted a disturbance in the exposed stairwell that led to their underground car park.
They thought they may have heard gunshots that were a little different from the fireworks and the firecrackers that people were setting off at the time.
They had heard a loud bang. They seen a male figure in dark clothing come out of the stairwell. There was 2 security guards there at the time. So both of those security guards had then gone to the stairwell to investigate what was going on.
Inside the stairwell, they stumbled across the body of 19-year-old transvestite Sean Keegan. By all appearances, he'd been shot in the head.
It's not unusual to be on that shift and have one homicide. What was unusual is that there's 2, and within a short span of time. So that immediately sort of got you thinking, is there a connection between the 2?
The discovery of a 3rd body would turn the night into one of the bloodiest in recent memory. If all were linked, it was possible Toronto had a serial killer on the loose. On the 21st of May 1996, in the space of just 1 hour, 2 prostitutes were brutally murdered in downtown Toronto. While police battled the elements in the car park where Brenda Ludgate was discovered, on the other side of the city, the body of 19-year-old transvestite Sean Keegan was removed from an exposed stairwell. Forensic expert Dave Wieland and his partner arrived at the latest crime scene.
I don't know at this point whether it's a serial killing or whether is one related to the other. I'm not sure. There's only one way in from ground level. And so what we can see is a concrete stairwell that disappears down into the earth. It was very dark. The rain was just teeming down, like it was coming down in buckets. And that was one of the biggest challenges for that scene, was to try and contain that and make it manageable.
A tarpaulin was secured over the stairwell before investigators moved in to search for potential clues.
When I had got down to that 2nd level of the stairwell and turned the corner, the first thing I saw was a lot of blood. You know, with any scene you walk in, and of course my practice is to capture it on film first. I'm trying to be the scene storyteller. I'm trying to let the jury know and the judge know exactly what it looked like when I got there, what I collected, what I did.
Like the Brenda Ludgate scene, rain had destroyed almost all hope of finding the killer's fingerprints.
The crime scene really didn't tell us a great deal about what had happened at that time. It could have been a sexual predator of some sort. It could have been a drug rip-off.
The painstaking search finally yielded an important clue.
The only thing that was still sitting in position that I hadn't picked up yet was the victim's umbrella. I picked it up, let all the remaining blood run with the umbrella, put it in its container and seal it inside and bring it up with me.
A bullet fragment was noticed in the same spot.
It was in a small, congealed portion of blood. And the only thing I can think of is that it was in the umbrella, because it wasn't there before I picked the umbrella up.
While the sample was taken for analysis, police interviewed the witnesses who reported hearing the gunshot and seeing a shadowy figure emerge from the stairwell. Due to darkness at the time of the sighting, they were unable to help with a composite sketch. As police debated whether the murders might be connected, the investigation took another twist. Only a few hundred meters from the stairwell where Sean Keegan had been murdered, daylight exposed yet another rain-soaked and bloody body. 31-year-old transsexual Thomas Wilkinson lay dead in a back garden. He too appeared to have been either badly beaten or shot in the head.
Now, he was isolated in that he's in an area that it isn't a heavy traffic area. There's nobody walking back there, obviously, so the killer could have taken his time to when he killed him.
The rain had washed away all the footprints except for 2 sets of footprints. One was a running shoe that matched Mr. Wilkinson's running shoes, and the other one appeared to be a hard-soled boot of some sort, rubber-soled boot, and what was obviously a man's shoe because of the size and the design of it. Draped over it was a clear plastic umbrella that he'd obviously been carrying at the time that he was shot. No signs of any struggle. The scene gave up very little other than the footprint.
While police combed the scene and canvassed the neighborhood, the families of all 3 victims were told of the terrible attacks. At the same time, the news spread across the city.
That started everyone talking definitely about connections. I mean, having 2 in one night, finding a third 9 hours later, all of them working in prostitution, doesn't take a genius to sort of wonder, well, I think they're connected.
But for police, no direct evidence as yet linked the murders. And while the proximity of Sean Keegan and Thomas Wilkinson's bodies suggested a link, police had more questions than answers when it came to possible motives.
Did one happen to stumble across the killing of the other one, and because of that end up being killed in their own right, or because of their similarity in occupation, whether or not we had somebody that was targeting male prostitutes in the area? We didn't know.
Investigators hoped results from the different labs would shed more light on the crimes. At the forensics lab, the recovered shell fragment was scrutinized. While at the mortuary, autopsies were being carried out on all 3 victims.
The opening of the autopsy is always the victim arriving in a body bag under seal. That's photographed by myself. What I do is I tend to look at it as a learning experience. How much can I learn from the victim? From my perspective, I tend to ask a lot of questions.
Later that same day, investigators' worst fears were confirmed. The autopsies, along with the ballistics tests, proved that all 3 victims were shot at close range by the same powerful .357 revolver.
What became apparent earlier on was the fact that each one had been shot what appeared to be execution-style headshots, and that someone wanted to kill them.
Police now knew they were dealing with a single suspect, a dangerous killer who most likely planned his attacks using the thunder and the holiday fireworks to disguise his gunshots. Reports that a serial killer was on the loose sent shockwaves around the city.
Police don't like to use that term unless they have to. They don't want to panic the public. When you start adding that up and saying that there's possibly one person out there who's going around killing people, this puts an entirely different color on the story. And the reality, people will become very afraid.
The news struck hardest among the community of prostitutes working in downtown Toronto.
There was a press conference called by street workers at a community center down on Church Street that was pretty intense about telling us that this is the reality of what has happened, that the fear was absolutely rife on the streets.
With little else to go on, police searching for leads focused on the one person who could possibly break the case open. The eyewitness who'd had a fleeting glimpse of the killer's truck at the Brenda Ludgate crime scene.
We'd gone through a process where we brought in numerous brochures from similar type vehicles as she described, trying to identify what type of vehicle it was. And she didn't feel that any of these vehicles and any of these brochures were that vehicle.
In a rare move, investigators brought in both a hypnotist and a police sketch artist to help jog the woman's memory.
The witness agreed to undergo some hypnosis in order to see if we could in fact enhance her description of the vehicle and perhaps obtain some plate numbers even.
Although they were unable to retrieve any license plate numbers, a more substantial image of the truck gradually surfaced.
The witness had described there being a light on top of the truck. It almost looks like a taxi cab light. It was a fairly nondescript vehicle that really didn't match any vehicles known to us. So we had lengthy conversations on whether or not we were going to release that to the press.
When police finally made the drawing public, it led to their biggest lead to date, bringing them that much closer to solving the horrifying triple murder. 24th of May, 1996. 3 days had passed since the brutal murders of 3 Toronto prostitutes. Given the execution-style nature of the shootings, along with the shared profession of the victims, profilers concluded their suspect was perhaps on some kind of mission and thought it highly likely he would strike again. Hoping an eyewitness account of his vehicle would generate leads, investigators enlisted the general public in their search.
At one of the press conferences, after they had a good description of the vehicle, the police released a sketch of this mysterious red truck, a very distinctive sketch.
The truck was described as being narrow-bodied with square headlights, and most puzzling, with a light on top of the cab, possibly pink in color. While the sketch was circulated, police maintained a high-profile presence in the areas frequented by prostitutes.
Back then, it was all-encompassing. The residents of the street, the sex workers, the street people who were now living in fear about somebody out there stalking them.
There was a lot more patrols, particularly in the areas where the prostitutes applied their trade. The scout cars were dropping by the local haunts and telling them to beware, be cautious, you know, really don't be going off to the usual places, you know, secluded places with your customers.
Perhaps most ominous, many prostitutes found the vehicle in the composite sketch familiar.
What that meant was that he'd been out there for some time, and this scared an awful lot of them. Knowing that this fellow had been out, looking at them, was he plotting?
While some detectives followed up leads on the street, others searched the databases of sexual offenders and probed lists of potentially dangerous clients compiled by prostitutes for their own self-protection.
They keep these pamphlets that track bad tricks, they call them. And there's different colors for the pamphlets that indicate the severity of the bad trick, ranging from kind of bad to really bad, where there's violence involved. And the thinking was, and the police I think were looking at the same thing, has this guy been out there before? Has his license plate been written down?
Sunday, the 26th of May. More than 5 days had passed since the killings. While tips on the street had generated few concrete leads, the sketch of the truck had caught the attention of one Toronto resident in particular, a man who'd been living with growing suspicions. The man finally spoke to a lawyer who contacted the police.
The lawyer called the police department so that I had conversations with this lawyer who advised me that he had a client who had information as to who was responsible for the murder of the 3 prostitutes.
The witness agreed to meet the police.
He was a very nice person, down-to-earth, concerned, responsible citizen.
The witness said that on the night of the killings, a friend of his, named Marcello Palmer, showed up unexpectedly at his door after midnight. 30-year-old Marcello, the owner of his own air conditioning repair business, was soaked from the rain and seemed nervous.
Mr. Palmer owned his own business, owned his own home, married, young child, no contact with the police to speak of. From what we knew of Mr. Palmer at that stage, there certainly wasn't anything to indicate that he was any sort of sexual predator or anything like that.
According to the witness, Marcello asked for an unusual favor.
And had left a package for him to take care of for him, and in that package was a handgun, a knife, and some ammunition. The friend had then, several days later, had occasion to meet Mr. Palmer again, and Mr. Palmer indicated to him that the bullets that were in the package, that you maybe should think about getting rid of them, which of course then caused him to become even more suspicious. The friend had then given the package to Mr. Palmer's brother and told him he had nothing to do with it.
With the publication of the vehicle sketch, the witness's suspicions seemed confirmed. Not only did his friend Marcello Palmer own a red truck, he'd been seen making alterations to its appearance in the wake of the murders.
He tried to remove the light, the brake light from the top of the cab. It wasn't something you would normally do. You're required to have them by law. Why would you try and turn it out?
Once Marcello Palma was identified to us, the investigation moved very, very quickly. Our main priority then was to track him down and to find him.
We had identified 3 possible locations that Mr. Palma may be at. At that time, there was police teams dispatched to those locations. Not to go and arrest Mr. Palma, but to conduct static surveillance.
While police quickly noted that Marcello's red truck was parked outside his air conditioning repair business, there were few signs of the man himself. Hours passed with little movement.
We hadn't seen him, we weren't able to see him, we had surveillance on different locations, we weren't able to find him.
Marcello Palma seemed to have vanished into thin air. When police finally spoke to friends and family members, they discovered that nobody had seen their prime suspect in at least 2 days. His disappearance, although worrying, only convinced them that they were on the right track, and they took their search nationwide.
Obviously, our concern was that Mr. Palma may kill somebody else. All indications were that he'd shot 3 people, and now he was on the run.
On the 29th of May, 1996, a warrant was issued for 30-year-old Marcello Palma.
The first time I saw a picture of Marcello Palma was on the front page of our newspaper. It was a grainy photograph, large and in color. He was smiling. He looked like a pleasant young man.
He didn't look like the guy who drove around in a red van and executed prostitutes.
You'd be surprised at how sometimes the roughest people in the world can turn out to be real sweeties, and some of the nicest people who smile right in your face aren't. Sometimes they're chameleons.
And then the big question was, where did he go?
The press was very good in keeping the investigation alive and keeping it in front of the people of Toronto and all of Canada to become aware of it, and especially when we were searching for him.
Shortly after going public, police received a tip of a possible sighting in Quebec and heard contradictory rumors regarding their suspect's intentions.
Somehow they learned that he might be driving to Montreal. He was spotted in Montreal. But by the time he was spotted and the information came back, he'd gone again.
We were receiving some information from different sources that was coming in that he wasn't dangerous, that he had left Montreal. Other people were saying he was going to go out like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. We just didn't know what we were up against.
At the same time, Marcello Palma's life in Toronto came under intense scrutiny as police looked for evidence.
We've got 3 search warrant scenes and we've got a vehicle we're going to seize. But each one needs a team to go in to actually deal with that scene, to do the physical collection, to do the photography, to collect all the little bits and pieces that might be important. So one team going to the suspect's home, one team going to the suspect's parents' place, and one team going to his place of business.
With each passing hour, the case against their fugitive grew stronger. In a gun safe, amongst other firearms, police found a snub-nosed .357 revolver.
It was certainly the type of gun and the caliber of gun that we were looking for.
Suspiciously, the barrel of the weapon seemed to have been altered.
All firearms that fire a bullet have rifling on the inside of the barrel, which is what causes the identifiable marks on the projectiles when they come out. All the rifling on the inside of that barrel had been removed, which meant that the projectiles taken from Mr. Keegan and Mr. Wilkinson and Brenda Ludgate then couldn't be matched to the gun. It showed a guilty mind that was working very consciously of trying to get rid of evidence.
The red truck that had helped break open the case also yielded important clues. A slip of paper with a phone number and the address of the building where Sean Keegan's body had been discovered.
As it turned out, the phone number was to a transvestite sex trade worker who had been contacted by Mr. Palma.
He had some contact with these people. I don't know if it was contact with our three particular victims, but certainly people in the sex trade.
Closer scrutiny revealed what was possibly a direct biological link to one of the victims.
The front cab of the vehicle had been cleaned up quite extensively, but underneath the passenger side seat belt, there was a single small drop of blood.
The blood was secured for DNA testing. As police in Toronto started to build their case, the search for their suspect continued across the country. Along with following up possible sightings, detectives looked for other telling traces of his movements.
We're closely watching any way that he can obtain finances or contact with any of his relatives or anything like that, credit cards, ATM cards.
On the 1st of June 1996, 6 days after their suspect had fled Toronto, police finally got the break they'd been hoping for. In Halifax, Nova Scotia, a guest had checked into an expensive waterfront hotel, paying for his room with a credit card. The guest was Marcello Palma.
And lo and behold, in Halifax, he registered under his own name and his credit card.
Detectives in Toronto quickly took note.
It certainly wasn't an intelligent move if his intention was to not get caught, but I got in touch with Halifax police, and I spoke to the chief there and indicated to him our situation here, who Palma was, what he was wanted for. Because of the nature of Palma's crime, they were very concerned, so Halifax police became fully engaged at that time in an effort to try to track down Palma.
Wearing bulletproof vests, uniformed officers arrived at the waterfront hotel at 3 p.m. After briefing hotel security, they quietly escorted other guests off the building's 3rd floor.
They cleared out the rooms to protect the people in case he wouldn't give up without a fight. They talked to a chambermaid who said that this man had behaved very strangely in her presence. No threats or anything, but just that he seemed to be very agitated.
All rooms adjacent and around him were evacuated, and we had officers go to room 326 and 330, which were on each side of him, and to wait for him.
Moments later, police made their move, bursting into the room in question. But the room was empty.
And the Halifax police found that he wasn't in his room.
By 6:30 p.m., officers were still waiting in Palmer's room for his return. At one point, someone passed close by outside, but didn't enter. Then the phone rang. Police heard nothing but breathing on the other end. Officers wondered if Palmer knew of their presence. When the phone rang again, it was security down in the lobby, saying that Marcello Palma had just been spotted leaving the hotel. At 6:45, believing their stakeout was now compromised, police began combing outside.
Mr. Palmer had been at the hotel, and security had seen him. He left and walked towards the boardwalk. The officers at the hotel notified the station, who then dispatched some uniformed members along the waterfront, where they noticed a man fitting Mr. Palmer's description sitting on the railing. When they stood, watched him, and conversed as to whether or not it was him, he walked further out onto the wharf. He noticed the police were there. He started acting nervous, got up to walk away.
When confronted, the man was evasive, refusing at first to provide his name. But with nowhere left to run, the prime suspect in the triple murder finally buckled. After a cross-country manhunt, Marcello Palma was at last in custody. In his pocket, police found a collection of ammunition and a key to yet another hotel room in the city. Sergeant Philip MacDonald was one of the officers checking out the second hotel.
I did up a search warrant and went and searched room 7 at the bed and breakfast. And between the bed, the box spring and mattress was a .357 carbine-style rifle in a green garbage bag. And this rifle was loaded with 1 live round of ammunition. I still wonder to this day what he planned to do with it, because you're not here to sightsee with a rifle.
Marcello Palmer's reading material was also very interesting.
At that time, he had 2 books in his possession. One was Without Conscience and The Disturbing World of Psychopaths Among Us.
And chillingly, it was revealed that perhaps the killer was getting prepared for his future brush with the law, because he had books on psychological abnormalities. He was reading up on how to explain a person's psychoses. Was he preparing to try and get away with something?
Although now in police custody for 3 murders, Marcello Palmer would eventually plead not guilty by reason of insanity, a topic he appeared to have been reading up on. If successful, he would avoid prison altogether, despite committing one of Toronto's most horrifying crimes. On the 3rd of June 1996, police prepared to transfer 30-year-old Marcello Palmer from Halifax, Nova Scotia, back to Toronto, Ontario. Detective James Raymer was one of the officers accompanying the suspect on a routine commercial flight.
In most cases, you're boarded first, and you're put on the back of the plane. He is handcuffed and secured, and quite frankly, most of the passengers never even know he's on the airplane. He was very quiet. He was very polite. I think the best way for me to describe it is he wasn't acting like the type of individual that we would all think would be the type of person that would commit the murders that he did.
In Toronto, news quickly spread of the arrest, relieving tension across the city, especially in the areas where the prostitutes worked.
They breathed an incredible sigh of relief, and I'm sure the whole community did too. May 21st they were killed. June the 1st, he was captured in Halifax. That's an amazing accomplishment. In that very short span of time, they took 3 anonymous killings and had the handcuffs on the killer.
With Marcello Palmer now in custody, police consolidated their evidence, the most damning piece of which was confirmed through DNA testing. The small drop of blood found in Palmer's truck belonged to 25-year-old murder victim Brenda Ludgate. But while physical evidence tied their suspect to the murders, the case against Marcello Palmer was far from closed. His psychological state at the time of the crimes soon took center stage.
I think he remained a big mystery right up until the trial. You know, what was motivating him? What was his home life like? He had a wife and a young child. What happened in his mind that would lead him to go out at night and murder 3 people, point blank range with a gun to the head, you know, and with a sexual component to it. It was all very mysterious.
April 1999. In a Toronto courthouse, in a hearing presided over by the judge alone, Marcello Palmer pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. He admitted to the killings, but denied all criminal responsibility.
The bulk of his argument was I was insane or temporarily insane, I wasn't myself, and therefore I shouldn't be found guilty of these crimes.
He appeared every day in this, you know, immaculate Italian suit, hair combed, I mean, looking very neat, but also there was, you know, an arrogance about him. There was certainly no sign of remorse. There was almost an assuredness that, you know, he was going to beat this somehow.
The trial was very heavily covered by all media, and a lot of the pieces of the puzzle began to fit into place.
What emerged was the story of a deeply disturbed man. Both Marcello Palmer's wife, from whom he was estranged at the time of the murders, as well as the mistress he was seeing, took the stand. The man they depicted was a ticking time bomb.
He was a chameleon. To a lot of people, he appeared to be a normal sort of fellow. To people very close to him, though, he was a different personality at times. With his family, other stories come out about his intensities, about his rages, about his split personality. He had threatened suicide many times with his wife as part of his controlling nature. She would catch him out in a lie about having mistress, having prostitutes, and he would get terribly upset, and he pointed a gun at her on one occasion. He pointed a gun at himself on one occasion, threatening suicide. The psychiatrist testified this is all part of the control game that he was playing.
It also emerged that 5 years prior to the murders, Marcello Palmer had sought psychiatric help. Through ongoing sessions, he revealed a hatred of the very people he felt compelled to seek out late at night.
He had picked up transvestites and prostitutes. His psychiatrist testified that he regarded these people as scum. He hated them, but yet he would be with them.
Most disturbing, he divulged murderous fantasies. Fantasies that were never taken at face value. For the defense lawyers, the deterioration of Palmer's marriage, along with a fight with his mistress, finally sparked a breakdown. At the time of the murders, they argued, Marcello Palmer didn't know what he was doing. But the prosecution countered that the crimes bore the hallmarks of premeditated acts. Not only had Palmer spoken of killing prostitutes, or as he had put it, ridding the streets of scum, but he went out on the night of the 21st of May 1996, a stormy and fireworks-filled night that would mask gunfire with a loaded .357 revolver at his side.
When he was rejected that night and went to the streets, he decided to reap revenge on the very people that he hated. And yet, there's a self-loathing in that he would go to them. But there was a self-punishment in this as well, I believe. And went out on the street and picked up a prostitute, and the killing started. And so he left Brenda Ludgate in a parking lot. He left Sean Keegan lying at the bottom of a stairwell. And he left Tom Wilkinson, whose street name was Deanna, lying on a graveled alleyway next to a bed and breakfast.
In April 2001, after 2 years of intermittent hearings, the judge finally gave his verdict. He rejected Marcello Palmer's insanity plea and found him guilty on all 3 counts of murder. Marcello Palmer was sentenced to life, with no chance of parole for 25 years.
The trial brought a closure for a lot of people. In this case, once the door is closed and the cell is locked behind Marcello Palmer, people felt relief.
Marcello Palmer is serving his sentence in a maximum security prison in central Canada. For those who knew his victims, as well as for those still working on Toronto's streets, no amount of justice can erase the lingering effects of the 3 heinous crimes.
They were young people growing up, and as problematic as their lives might have been, there were people who cared for them. You know, there were people who loved them.
The healing process on the streets probably taught a lot of the street people to be a little more careful. They look after themselves maybe a little bit more as a result of this. Somewhere in the back of their minds is, don't go down that dark alley. Check out that guy in that car a little more carefully.
It still reverberates. It's a constant worry for prostitutes, and there are unsolved homicides in the city of prostitutes. These ones, they found the guy, but there's a lot that remain unsolved, and the killers are out there.